My wife looked me dead in the eyes over dinner and told me she was going to spend 2 weeks at her ex-boyfriend's lake house. Her younger sister, sitting right next to her, nodded along like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. And the kicker? My wife said, and I quote, "I'm telling you up front, so it's not cheating. That's how honesty works in a marriage." I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just cut another piece of steak, chewed it slowly, and started planning the most calculated response of my entire life. Let me back up. My name's David. I'm 43, a logistics manager for a shipping company out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Decent income, nothing extravagant, but enough to keep a nice house in a good neighborhood, 2 cars in the garage, and a comfortable life for my family. My wife, Lisa, was 38. We'd been married for 7 years. Not a fairy tale, but solid. Or so I believed. Lisa had a daughter from a previous relationship, a 20-year-old named Jess, who lived with us rent-free while she attended community college on my dime. And then there was Lisa's younger sister, Megan, 29, perpetually single, perpetually stirring the pot. Megan had this way of inserting herself into our marriage like she had a reserved seat at the table. She'd come over 3-4 times a week, whispering with Lisa in the kitchen, going quiet whenever I walked in. For months, I'd noticed the two of them getting closer, in a way that excluded me entirely. Hushed phone calls, shared glances. Lisa suddenly guarding her phone like it contained nuclear codes. I'd reach for it to check the time and she'd snatch it away so fast you'd think I was grabbing a live grenade. The paranoia ate at me for about 2 months before I did something about it. I hired a private investigator, $1,200. Could have put that toward the kitchen renovation Lisa had been nagging me about for a year. But I needed answers more than I needed new countertops. The PI was thorough. Within 10 days, he had photographs, screenshots, and a timeline that made my stomach turn. Lisa had been in contact with her ex-boyfriend, Derek. The same Derek who'd cheated on her with 3 different women before she left him. The same Derek who once maxed out her credit cards and left her buried in debt that I helped her crawl out of when we first started dating. That Derek. The PI confirmed they'd met in person at least 4 times over the past 6 weeks. Megan had been the go-between, setting up meetings, covering for Lisa when I asked where she was. Jess knew too. She'd been driving Lisa to some of those meetups because Lisa didn't want her own car spotted near Derek's place. My stepdaughter was literally chauffeuring my wife to her affair. I sat with that information for a week, didn't say a word, went to work, came home, kissed Lisa on the cheek, asked Jess how her classes were going, even made small talk with Megan when she came over. Inside, I was burning. But I've always been a patient man. Patience is what made me good at logistics. You don't react to the problem. You map the solution first, then you execute. That brings us back to the dinner. It was a Thursday. Lisa had made pot roast. Megan was there as usual, and Jess was scrolling through her phone between bites. Lisa set down her fork, cleared her throat, and delivered her little speech. She said Derek had invited her to his lake house in the mountains for 2 weeks. She said she needed space to figure out her feelings. And then came the line that nearly made me choke on my food. "I'm being transparent with you, David. I could sneak around, but I'm choosing to tell you. That means this isn't betrayal. I'm being respectful." I looked at Megan. She was nodding, arms crossed, wearing this self-satisfied expression like she'd rehearsed this whole thing with Lisa beforehand, which of course she had. "Mom deserves to explore what makes her happy," Jess added without looking up from her phone. "You can't own another person's emotions." I set my knife down carefully. "So let me understand this. You're going to stay at your ex-boyfriend's house for 2 weeks. The man who cheated on you, ran up your debt, and left you with nothing. And you're telling me this makes it acceptable because you gave me a heads up." Lisa's jaw tightened. "Don't twist my words. I'm not some villain here. I'm being honest. Most wives wouldn't even tell their husbands." "She's right," Megan chimed in. "You should be grateful she respects you enough to be upfront. This is what healthy communication looks like." I almost laughed. Healthy communication. Coming from Megan, who'd been secretly orchestrating this whole thing behind my back for weeks. I knew from the PI's report that it was Megan who first reconnected with Derek on social media and then encouraged Lisa to reach out. Megan who told Lisa that life was too short to wonder what if. Megan who said, and the PI had the text screenshots to prove it, "David is boring and predictable. You need excitement." Derek was always more fun. But I didn't confront any of them. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back in my chair and said, "Okay." Lisa blinked. "Okay? That's it? If this is what you need, I'm not going to chain you to the house. But I have one condition. If you're leaving for 2 weeks, we sign a temporary separation agreement. Standard stuff." You waive financial claims on me during the separation period, and I waive any on you. We each handle our own expenses. Clean and fair. Megan jumped in immediately. That sounds reasonable. See, Lisa? I told you he'd be mature about it. Lisa looked suspicious for about 3 seconds, then relaxed. Fine. Draw it up. I'll sign whatever. Me too, Jess said, though nobody asked her to sign anything. I called my lawyer the next morning. His name was Patterson, a sharp guy I'd known since college. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, then said, David, are you sure about this approach? I told him I'd never been more sure of anything. He drafted the agreement that afternoon. It was meticulous. Temporary separation of assets, waiver of spousal support during the separation period, acknowledgement that both parties were free to act independently with no financial obligations to each other. Lisa would have no claim on any accounts, property, or vehicles solely in my name. And buried in the language, a clause stating that the separation could be converted to a permanent filing at either party's discretion. Lisa signed it at the kitchen table the next evening. Didn't read a single page. Just flipped to the signature line and scribbled her name while Megan stood behind her saying, This is just a formality. Don't overthink it. Jess was in the living room, already helping her mother pack. I watched Lisa sign, and something in my chest shifted. Not sadness, not anger. Resolution. They left on a Saturday morning. Lisa had 2 suitcases. Jess drove her in my car, the SUV I'd bought and put in my name, because Lisa's credit was still recovering from the Derek era. Megan followed in her own car, honking the horn like they were headed to some girls' weekend in Myrtle Beach. As they pulled out of the driveway, Jess leaned out the window and shouted, Don't wait up, David. Mom's gonna have the time of her life. Megan honked again, twice, like a victory lap. I stood on the porch, hands in my pockets, and watched them disappear down the street. Then I went inside, sat down at my desk, and got to work. First, I called Patterson. Convert the temporary separation to a permanent filing, I said, and start the divorce proceedings. Adultery. He already had the PI's evidence. He filed the paperwork that Monday. Next, the finances. Our joint checking account had about $42,000 in it. I'd contributed roughly 90% of that over the years. Lisa's part-time job at a boutique barely covered her personal spending. I transferred the entire balance to a new account solely in my name, legal under the separation agreement she'd signed. Then I closed the joint account entirely. The cars. Lisa's sedan was in my name. I'd been making the payments since we bought it. Same with the SUV. Jess was currently driving to chauffeur her mother to her lover's lake house. I called the dealership and arranged to sell the sedan outright. For the SUV, I reported it as unauthorized use since Jess had no written permission to operate a vehicle in my name during a legal separation. The dealership was more than happy to facilitate the return. Then the house. My name on the deed. I'd bought it 3 years before we even met. Lisa had never contributed to the mortgage. I called a locksmith and had every lock changed. New deadbolts, new garage code, new everything. I also canceled Lisa's credit card, the one linked to my account that she used for groceries, gas, shopping. Canceled Jess's phone plan too, the one I'd been paying for since she was 16. 5 days of silence. Beautiful, uninterrupted silence. I slept like a stone, ate breakfast without tension, nodding my shoulders. Watched the sun set from the back porch with a cold beer, and thought, for the first time in months, that maybe things were going to be fine. On day 6, my phone erupted. Lisa called 11 times in 2 hours. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages escalated quickly. The first one was confused. David, my card got declined at the gas station. Can you check if there's an issue with the bank? The second was irritated. David, I'm serious. Something's wrong with the account. Call me back. By the 5th message, she was panicking. Why is the account closed? Where's the money? What did you do? By the 8th, she was screaming. You bastard, you stole our money. I'm calling the police. Jess called too. Her voicemail was pure venom. What the hell is wrong with you? Mom can't access anything. My phone got cut off. I had to borrow Megan's phone to even call you. You're a psycho, David. A complete psycho. You think you can just cut us off because you're having some kind of ego trip? I finally picked up on Lisa's 12th call. She was crying. David, please. What's happening? I can't access any of our money. The credit card is dead. What did you do? I kept my voice level. I exercised my rights under our separation agreement. You signed it, Lisa. We each handle our own expenses during the separation. My money is in my account. Your money is in yours. If you need funds, ask Derek. Or ask Megan. She seems to have all the answers. You can't do this. Jess needs her phone. She has classes. Jess is 20 years old. She can get her own phone plan. She can also get her own car, since the SUV is being returned to the dealership. Returned? What are you talking about? It's my vehicle. Jess had no authorization to take it. I'm reclaiming it. Lisa went quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice tight with fury, she said, I'm coming home. The locks have been changed, I said, and I've filed for divorce. Adultery. My lawyer has photographs, text messages, and a full timeline of your relationship with Derek. You might want to get your own attorney, Lisa. You're going to need one. She hung up. I poured another beer. The next 2 weeks were chaos, but only for them. Lisa called my lawyer, who calmly redirected her to her own legal counsel. Megan called me directly, screaming about how I was a manipulative control freak and that she would personally make sure I never saw a penny in the divorce. I reminded her that she wasn't a party to the marriage and that her involvement in orchestrating the affair was thoroughly documented. That shut her up fast. Jess sent me a series of text messages from Megan's phone that ranged from pleading to threatening. One said, You promised you'd pay for my school. You owe me that. Another said, I swear to God I will ruin your life. I saved every single message. The divorce hearing was 3 months later. Patterson was a surgeon in that courtroom. He presented the PI's evidence methodically. The photographs of Lisa and Derek together. The text messages between Lisa and Megan planning the affair. The screenshots of Megan telling Lisa that David is a doormat. He'll take you back no matter what. Jess's role as the driver documented through GPS records and timestamps. Lisa's attorney tried to argue that the separation agreement was signed under duress. Patterson produced the video from our doorbell camera, showing Lisa signing the papers calmly at the kitchen table, while Megan encouraged her and Jess packed suitcases in the background. No duress, no coercion, just arrogance. The judge granted the divorce on grounds of adultery. Lisa got nothing. The house was mine, the savings were mine, the vehicles were mine. She walked out of that courtroom with whatever she'd packed in those 2 suitcases and whatever dignity she had left, which wasn't much. Within a month, the fallout hit like dominoes. Lisa moved in with Derek at the lake house. That lasted about 6 weeks before Derek's true nature resurfaced. He started borrowing money from her, money she didn't have. When she couldn't produce cash fast enough, he got nasty. Not physical, but the kind of psychological cruelty he'd always been good at. Calling her worthless. Telling her she was lucky he even took her back. Lisa, who'd spent 7 years in a stable home with me, was suddenly right back in the nightmare she'd escaped a decade ago. Megan's involvement blew up in her face, too. Her boyfriend found out she'd been the mastermind behind her sister's affair and dumped her on the spot. His exact words, according to a mutual friend, were, If you'd help your sister cheat, you'd help yourself cheat too. Megan moved back in with their parents, who were mortified by the entire situation. Jess dropped out of community college. Couldn't afford tuition, couldn't afford gas, couldn't afford anything. She got a job at a fast food restaurant and moved into a cramped apartment with 2 roommates. The girl who used to mock me for being boring and predictable was now splitting rent 3 ways and eating dollar menu meals. I sold the house 6 months later. Took a position with a logistics firm in Denver. New city, new start. The Rockies on the horizon every morning instead of the flat Carolina suburbs that reminded me of everything I'd lost and everything I'd shed. I was doing well. Not happy exactly, but lighter. The weight of being used and disrespected had lifted, and in its place was a quiet satisfaction that I'd handled things correctly. Then, about 8 months after the divorce, my phone rang. Unknown number, with a North Carolina area code. I almost didn't pick up. Something made me answer. David? The voice was small, shaky, barely recognizable. It was Jess. What do you want? I said. Please don't hang up. I know I don't deserve your time. I know that. But I don't have anyone else to call. She was crying. Not the dramatic, performative crying I'd heard from Lisa during the divorce. This was raw. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and broken. You've got 60 seconds, I said. Derek kicked Mom out. She's been staying with Megan at my grandparents' house, but Grandpa had a stroke last week and they can't handle the stress. Mom's a mess. She's not eating, she's not sleeping, she just sits there staring at nothing. She paused, steadied herself. And David, I'm pregnant. The father wants nothing to do with it. I lost my job because I was too sick to work my shifts. I'm 3 months behind on rent. My roommates are about to kick me out. I have nobody. I have nothing. I stood at my apartment window, staring at the mountains, turning gold in the late afternoon sun. The distance between me and that old life felt enormous, oceanic. David, please. I'm not asking for a lot. Just enough to get through the next few months. I'll pay you back. I swear on everything. I let the silence stretch. Memories cycled through my mind. Jess leaning out the car window. Don't wait up, David. Jess texting from Megan's phone. I swear I will ruin your life. Jess driving her mother to Derek's arms while I was at work providing for all of them. Jess, who never once called me dad but was happy to spend my money like I was an ATM with a heartbeat. You told me once, I said slowly, that your mother deserved to explore what makes her happy. That I couldn't own another person's emotions. Remember that? Silence on the other end. Then a whispered, I was stupid. I was young and stupid. You were 20, Jess. Not 12. You knew what you were doing. You drove her to his house. You helped plan it. You laughed about it. And when I asked you to respect my marriage, you told me I was on an ego trip. I know all of that, and I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I believe you're sorry. I believe you're scared. But I spent 7 years providing for you, and you repaid me by helping destroy my marriage. You didn't just stand by. You participated. You were the getaway driver. David, please. I'm gonna hang up now, Jess. I wish you well. I genuinely do. But I can't help you. You burned this bridge, and you did it with a smile on your face. Go ask Derek for help. Go ask Megan, the woman with all the brilliant advice. Go ask your mother, who thought 2 weeks at a lake house was worth more than a marriage. But don't call me. I'm not your safety net anymore. David, I'm pregnant and I have nowhere to go. Please don't do this. Goodbye, Jess. I ended the call. My hand was steady. My heart was not. I stood there for a long time, watching the sun sink behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of red and amber. Somewhere in North Carolina, a pregnant girl was staring at a dead phone screen, realizing for the first time that the man she'd dismissed as boring and predictable had been the only stable thing in her life. And now he was gone. I set the phone down, poured a glass of bourbon, and sat in the quiet of my new apartment. No guilt, no regret, just the clean, cold truth that some people don't understand what they have until they've destroyed it. And by then, it's too late to put it back together. I never heard from any of them again.